This happened to me when I was around 18 to 20 years old. I stopped being a troublemaker when I hit my 18th birthday. Anyways, I really got involved into volleyball and I was loving that sport. I would run from Mount Airy to Phelan Lake and then back home. This one time, I went to Mound's View on the east side. To those of you who are aware of this place, you know what's up with that place. My friends and their friends wanted us to go to that place to go and hang out and play some ball. So when we got there, since I didn't really know them too well, I wasn't in the mood to play. I had other things on my mind. Anyways, I walked to where the Indian mounds were, and in between, there's an overview where you can see the river. I can't tell you the exact place where I encountered this because it still gives me the goosebumps and bad memories of that day. During this time, I was single and sort of depressed because I stopped dating so that I can focus on my training. Back then, when I was a bit of a troublemaker, I used to bring my ex-girlfriend, who I loved a lot. We would walk through the trails, and there was also the place where I asked her out. Anyways, I wanted to be alone and went to that overview place. As I was sitting in the grass, I was looking into the woods. The wind was dead with no breeze. Then all of a sudden, this brush started to shake. At first it shook a little, and I just thought that it was an animal. Then I decided to ignore it. The second time it shook a lot more, so I was kind of confused as to what I was looking at. There wasn't any wind blowing, and besides, I could see right through the bush. It really wasn't that dense. I was wondering what could be causing it to shake like that. By this time, it shook a lot more and a lot harder. It's like when you go and grab one of those branches with all your strength and shake it. At this point, I got scared, so I got up and walked back to where my homeboys were at. Since I didn't drive there, I didn't want to freak out my buddies or make a big scene and make them think that I was crazy. So we all stayed there until my buddies decided to leave. That night, I couldn't really sleep. When I closed my eyes, I could still see the bush shaking. It felt like something was getting ready to come out and show itself to me. I was so scared to close my eyes. When my eyes were open, I felt fine, but when I closed it so that I can go to sleep, the vision of the bush shaking would come back. By now, I was freaking out. I had a Bible with me, and I was praying to God to protect me, but that didn't help. I didn't want to go and tell my parents because they might think that I was talking crazy, so I tried to deal with it myself. However, as the night grew darker and darker, I knew that something was coming for me. I didn't know who or what it was. I got so scared that I even had the book next to me so that I can try to sleep. I knew that if I fell asleep right now, I might not wake up the next day. I never felt so scared in my life. If there was ever a moment to be scared for my life, this moment, it was it. I finally went to my parents' room at around 1 to 2 a.m. with the Bible in my hand, and I was looking very yellow. My mom was wondering what was wrong with me and why was I looking so pale. This is when I told my mom what I ran into at the park. I told her that I couldn't close my eyes because if I did, I felt like something was going to come and take me away. So my mom went and took out one of those red triangle pouches and then clipped it onto my shirt. She then got a rock or something and was chewing on it, and then went to the bedroom door and she spit it out and chanted some strange words, but I was too scared to watch it. After that was done, I was finally able to close my eyes and fall asleep. Surprisingly, I didn't see that bush shake at all. For 2 to 3 nights in a row, I slept on the floor of their bedroom. It's kind of funny because I was a grown adult during this time. It still scares me when I think about it, but not like how it did back then. I don't know what my mom did that night, but whatever she did, it really helped me. I just thought it was strange because I could never find an example or find any logic for why a bush would do that. And that's why you don't go to Mounds Park, because oh man, you see a scary bush, it's shaking by itself. Oh, okay, maybe I was really scared during that moment, but this story was a little okay. I have a few stories to share. The first story was involving my brother and sister. Back in my old house, my brother and sister were playing with what I think was a stuffed monkey. They tied the monkey's arm in a rope around its neck. Don't ask me why. They were torturing the monkey. That night, the spirit of the stuffed monkey doll came into the dreams of my siblings. It was 2 of my sisters and 1 of my brothers, the one that were playing with the monkey. The monkey came into their dream and was chasing them with a knife and was trying to kill them. The next day, I don't know what happened, but one of my sisters told the other sister about her dream. She said that the monkey that they tied up was trying to kill her. She didn't know that the other two also had the same exact dream. After they found out that they had the same dream, they stopped torturing the stuffed monkey doll. Moral of the story is to not be torturing live animals or even stuffed ones, because karma is real and you don't know what might happen to you. The next story that I'm about to share was told to me by one of my relatives. Back in the project homes, there was this school that had a large open field, and a lot of Hmong people would go and play soccer. They would also play that one sport where you had the bamboo ball where you use your feet and your head. It's like volleyball, but with your feet only. They were all playing, and this bamboo ball goes flying out of the court, and out of nowhere, this little white figure showed up. I heard that it was like this dirty kid with slanted eyes. They went to the ball, and the kid was dirty looking and scary at the same time. The child was asking for the Hmong people to play with them, but they got scared and started packing up their stuff and went to their cars and drove out of that parking lot. However, there were still these two dudes left because they lived in that area. The ghost or whatever was asking if those two dudes would play with them. Because of this, they decided to walk away, but whatever this thing was would continue to follow them, but at a very far away distance. When they both got up the hill, they both ran like crazy, and whoever this was, this child or spirit, chose not to chase them. After that, no one would go and play sports there for a long time. Here's another story that happened to me. It happened way back then, when I used to go to bridges and catch pigeons. It was me, my best friend, and 2 or 3 other friends that day. We went to downtown St. Paul. There was this building that we used to call the Fun House because every level looks the same. When we got there, we all went and picked out a stick so we could whack the pigeons when they fly. One guy would chase the pigeons while the others tried to hit the bird. Oh, you guys were naughty. Before we could make it to the top, we had to climb this window or wall or whatever it was. I forgot what it was. Anyways, if you lose your grip, then you fall straight down in the middle, and there's basically no way for you to get out. At first, I was kind of scared, and this was my second time that I've been there. The first time we went, we made it to the 6th or 8th floor. I don't remember, but that's the reason why we call it the Fun House. So on this occasion, we were trying to make our way to the top floor, which was the roof. We weren't there entirely yet. There was still one more level before we reached the roof. During the climb, my best friend made it first to the last part. There he saw a white figure sitting in that dark room looking at us while we were climbing up. He was freaking out at this point but didn't want to scream. This was because some of us were still trying to make that climb. I didn't know this at the time, but we all made it to the top. On top of the roof, it was a very pretty view. After that, all we had to do was climb down that dangerous route to go back to the lower level. While we were climbing down, we made it to the 3rd or 4th level. My best friend then started to run down the stairs and everybody followed him. When we all got out and were walking down the rail tracks, that's when he told us what he saw when we were all in that room. He said that if he had screamed at that point in time, all of us would have potentially fell off and died. I'm glad he kept his cool, but yeah, that was a super dangerous climb. This next story also occurred when I was a bit of a troublemaker as well. I was at a friend's place, and at the time I didn't understand why he had so many people at his house. I mean, his place was 2 stories, had 2 bedrooms and a basement. Both of his parents lived there, but I don't know why there were so many young and very bad dudes hanging out there. I don't even know or ever have seen these people before. When morning came, most of them left, but some of them fell asleep there. Ooh, chipotjali. There would always be parties at this friend's house. They would be playing cards for money. On the first night that I was there, I thought that I heard his older sister or somebody in the kitchen stirring pots, like somebody was in there cooking. I got up from the couch and went into the dark area, hoping to see a person there, but I didn't see anybody. So because of this, I went back to watch them play their games. Again, I heard the same noises and did the same thing, peeking my head into the kitchen but didn't see anybody. This went on for a couple more times and I told myself to stop checking on whatever I was hearing. I was getting freaked out at this point, but I thought that it was just his older sister, so I calmed down a little bit. When morning came, everybody left again, but I stayed behind. There were about 4 of us there. For some stupid reason, all 4 of us decided to go out and crash at another friend's house. When we all got up the next day, I asked my buddy about his place. I asked him if his sister was at home last night because I kept on hearing the pots and pans stir like somebody was cooking, but whenever I went to check it out, there was nobody there. This was when he told me the true story about his house. He told me that the reason why there are so many people at his place, and he even let strangers come to his place and gamble, was because in the kitchen there was this little girl who would play with the pots and dishes. In the basement, there's this baby that drowned in the sink and was buried under the sink. Upstairs in the bedroom, he could not sleep at all because there's this younger kid that would come and kick him whenever he slept in there, so he doesn't sleep in his own bedroom. Instead, he'll sleep in the living room and the basement, mostly in the basement. After he told me the story, I learned more stuff about what happened to him, and because of this, I didn't really want to hang out at his place anymore. After a long while, people stopped showing up because they started to see things. At least that's what I heard. Something else happened there, some paranormal activity occurred, and that family moved out. During the time that they were still moving out, their mail would still be sent there, and because of this, me and some other buddies would go with them to go pick up the mail. The first week that we all went to get his mail, Hmong people already started moving in there. When we asked for the mail, the Hmong dude gave the mail to him and asked if we knew something about that house that he's living in now. We were kind of surprised and told him no, and why would he ask us that question? And he said that, oh, it's just nothing. After that, we all left. 2 to 3 days later, that very dude moved out of that house, and after that, some new family moved in. In about a week or so, they also moved out. This seemed to be the normal thing for the people who moved in there. Families would move in and then move out like the very next day. Recently, there's a new family that moved in there. This family has stayed the longest compared to the other families that have moved in before, but it seems like they don't experience anything, or maybe they just choose to ignore it. Anyways, here's another story. This time it's a fishing trip. This fishing trip involved my best friend's brother and his 3 friends. They all went night fishing in Haston T Island, Minnesota. I don't know the exact area they went because there are so many routes that you can go. Anyways, I was told that they went to an area that had 2 rivers merging into one singular river. They had to walk out there all quiet before they finally got to their fishing spot. While they were fishing and having fun, all of a sudden, there was this massive splash in the middle of the river. All of them looked at each other, all confused, like, what was that? Then the splash comes closer to the shore. I was told that when it got closer to the shore, it was like how a little kid would be splashing in the water. Visually, they didn't see anybody there. There was this one friend that brought along his BB gun. Don't ask me why, he had a BB gun with him. So he shot the gun into whatever was making that splash. Then he felt the pellet fly back and hit him. By this time, they were getting ready to pee in their pants. They all looked at each other and knew that they had to get the heck out of there. So they packed up their things and started to walk back, but they had to walk a while before they could get back to the truck. They started at a speed walk, and then one of them got faster, and before you knew it, they all started to sprint towards the car. When they finally got to the truck, they threw everything into the trunk and drove off. While they were on the road, and with all the commotion, they forgot to close the trunk door. So, if you can only imagine, all their gear were bouncing around in the trunk bed. Because of this, they thought that whatever it was had gotten itself into the trunk. When they got closer to the town, they stopped at this gas station. One of the friends told the other ones to go and check it out. He said that no way in hell was he ever going to go and check back there. By now, all 4 of them were scared, so they went all together and thought that they were going to see something, but there was nothing there. After that night, my friend's brother never went fishing ever again. There's this one elder that lives next door to them, and he overheard the story about that night. You see, he's a little bit cocky because he thinks that he knows how to do those Hmong magic spells. That elder said that it was nothing, and that he could go out and beat this thing with his magic, and that if he can't, then he'll never ever do magic ever again. I heard that he asked the brothers and friends to bring him to where they saw that thing that night, so they decided to take him there. As soon as he got there, out of nowhere, a strong gust of wind came in and blew them away. At this point, the trees were shaking and it felt like they were going to be snapped in two. He tried all of his magic incantations, and could not do anything. This elder and his magic did not have a chance with whatever this thing was. Later, he said that it was a Pinuwai that lives there. That elder said that the boys were lucky that they got out of there, because it was the Pinuwai that were making all those things, all the splashing and the spooky things that they encountered. So moral of the story, do not go to Hastings Island in Minnesota. My sister and I grew up as cat lovers. She caught this stray female cat once, and the cat became like a family member. I mean, she doesn't live with us in the house, but we treat her like one. Anyways, a couple of years ago, my sister got married. Strange things started happening at the beginning of their marriage. Her husband worked early in the morning, and he would leave her sleeping alone. Anyways, on 2 accounts, when her husband left, she would hear the door open, as if someone is coming back in, and then they would close it. Then, she would feel the side where her husband sleeps, and she would feel as if there was a pressure, like a person was laying back down to sleep. She would turn around and find that there was nobody there. The second time it happened, she had a dream that she was back at her old house, where she caught the cat. She was surrounded by a lot of people talking and arguing back and forth with one another, but she couldn't understand what they were saying. Then, she saw those 3 cats clawing at the windows from outside. This reminded her of the cat that she caught. It felt as if the cats were telling her to let them inside the house. When she opened the door for them, the whole room erupted into chaos. Everybody was shouting now. Some of them were giving her the eye, letting her know that they disapprove of her actions. She got tired of the yelling and arguing, so she screamed, "Shut up, let the cats speak." And they did. The cats told her that they worked for the shadow that had been coming into her room. They didn't really like him, so they decided to come and warn her. If she valued her life, she would not sleep in there anymore. They warned her and said that the next time the shadow comes in there, it would take her soul with it on its journey back home. After that dream, my sister told her mother-in-law about it, and they had her sleep in a different room. My sister still thanks those cats for saving her life. She doesn't know what could have happened if they didn't come to warn her about it. This was a while ago, before Facebook became popular. My uncle was over at his cousin's house one night. He went to the bathroom and took a picture of himself posing. Later, he uploaded it to his MySpace profile. During this time, I wasn't there to witness this because I had left home for some job training. I came back and my buddies told me that my uncle took a picture of himself, but there was this little girl looking at the mirror from behind from his left. I didn't believe in this, so one day, before we had internet in our house, I went to the library to look on his MySpace. I came to the picture that they were talking about, but couldn't see anything. This was until I read one of the comments from a girl that she left on there. She commented on his post and then asked, "Why is there a little girl behind you? Is that your little sister?" During this time, at his cousin's house, they did have a little girl that looks like the girl in the picture, but she was already asleep. My uncle said that he had locked the door and only took that picture after he used the bathroom. He was positive that there couldn't be anybody in there. I've tried going back on his profile to look again, but to this day, I can't find it anymore. One night, my buddies were partying and drinking at the same house that he took the picture from. It was late into the night, and it was in a small house. There's a big window perpendicular to the door. Well, as the story goes, my uncle was drinking, acting stupid, and got down on all fours, crawling around on the floor. All of a sudden, he started yelling at the window, saying, "Go away, I don't want to play right now," just cursing at whatever was at the window. He started throwing shoes at it, and then, this is the creepiest from what I heard next, he was still on all fours like a dog, and started walking backwards with his tongue sticking out like a dog. That freaked everybody out who was there. My cousin said that he went over to him and gave my uncle a good punch to the face, and that broke him free from whatever was controlling him. After that, everybody decided that it was just time to go home. Most of them had a car or came with somebody, but there was this one girl that didn't have a ride and doesn't live close to anybody. So my friends who lived in that house gave her a ride home. They have a small Toyota pickup. When they got into the truck to take the girl home, There were 4 of them in there. My friend who's driving, the girl, my uncle, and my cousin. After they went and dropped off the girl at her place, they came back home. While they were still on the road, my uncle started to act crazy again. He turned and looked behind the truck while they were still driving and said that there was a little girl running after them. My cousin turned around and looked, and there was nobody. Besides, they were going at 40 miles per hour. They got mad and kept quiet all the way home. After that, they did jingle bells on him and changed his name. Ever since then, he doesn't see that little ghost girl anymore. Rumors was that the girl he took the picture with was his cousin's older sister, but she passed away when she was about 3 or 4 years old and was following the family. I guess this is the reason why she kind of looks like their little sister now. After that, that family who lived in that house moved out of the place. Way back in high school, we all had to take gym classes. I wasn't there when this happened because I'm in the 3rd period. I heard that this happened during the 1st period. There's this Hmong dude that I kinda know, but not too well. That day, I heard that they were trying to swim, but this guy wasn't that great of a swimmer, so he was in the 3 feet water range. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started to drown. I mean, he was in 3 to 4 feet of water. Everybody was like wondering what the heck was going on. People were in shock, but also at the same time, they were laughing because he was around the 3 to 4 feet mark. Luckily, there was a student lifeguard there and they saved his butt. When 3rd period came, everybody was kind of scared to go into that pool. Some say that that pool is haunted and that you might die if you start swimming in there. Here's another story. I don't remember if this is a dream or if it really happened to me. When I was little, I moved to my first project housing after I left Plaza St. Paul. I only remember a little bit here and there. When I asked my parents about that, they seemed to have no idea what I'm trying to say. I think I was about 3 to 5 years old, around that age. I remember that I had lost a tooth, and in its place, I was growing this carved type tooth that was around 2 to 3 inches long and about 1/8 of an inch wide. I would do strange things and say strange things. I think I was acting crazy. Like I said, I don't remember it that well at all, but I do remember yelling at my parents and telling them to shut up and all those things. I remember running, being butt naked and refusing to wear clothes around the house. I also remember that one of my uncles came over after I showed my parents my carved type tooth. Oh, I think he meant curved, not carved, my bad. Curved type tooth. Anyways, my uncle came and tied this tiny string around the tooth and chanted some words. I don't know what he said. After he was done, he yanked the string and that tooth came flying out of my mouth. I mean, I saw what that tooth looked like. It was very white, and if you were to take your index finger and bent it forward a little bit, you would know what I'm trying to describe here. It was very curved. I think it was growing on the bottom jaw and the front, behind my front teeth. It would have been nice if my parents told me about that tooth, and that it was not a dream. This is so I can stop thinking that I'm going crazy if it was a dream or if it was really reality. But honestly, I think that when that happened, my parents were too scared and didn't want to tell me the story. To this day, I still want to know the truth. I used to live in Stockton, California. It was me, my mom, my 2 younger sisters, and a younger brother. We all lived in a 1-room apartment with other Hmong families. One night, my mom wasn't home. I forgot where she went, but I was tired and decided to sleep on her side of the bed. We had 2 queen-sized beds in 1 room. When I went to sleep for a while, I don't know how long, I had a dream. My mom usually sees things and dream of things. Anyways, in my dream, my Mexican friend from my French class was in my dream. I was at the library and my friend Ivan and some other guys were bad guys. They kidnapped me and an Asian family and took us to a conference room with a really big pillar in the middle of the room. Well, this was a crazy dream. Me and the daughter of that Asian family hid behind the pillar and I watched Ivan kill the little girl's parents. Then I got scared and pushed her out of the door that said exit. I told her to run and then sprinted through the other door and into the library and the bookshelves. Somehow I kind of hopped and flew over to the top of the bookshelf. I remember the library was kind of small. Anyways, I was hopping from one bookshelf to another, and Ivan and his men were trying to catch me. Finally, I got cornered and I was crouching on my knees and arms because the ceiling was low or the bookshelves were too high. All of a sudden, Ivan started jumping and trying to grab me. This is the strange and scary part. You know when you're dreaming and you kind of wake up and you're in a dreamlike state? Well, I was kind of like that. I remember seeing our bedroom was dark and the door was slightly opened, and I could hear my younger sisters and brother out in the living room. We had a pretty small place. They were shouting and running around. Then, I turned my attention to the foot of the bed and I saw a hand from the elbow up, like it was waving or something, almost as if it was trying to grab me, and it looked like a guy's arm. Then I turned around and went back to sleep. When I woke up, I sprinted off of my mom's bed and opened the door, which was slightly opened. I felt a little dizzy because I got up so fast and didn't want to scare my siblings. So I walked in a normal pace, and when I reached the sofa, I laid down and fell asleep. A few days later, I told my younger sister, who is a year younger than me. She got freaked out and would not go anywhere near my mom's bed. I didn't sleep in my mom's bed ever again. I mean, I climb into bed with her and sit there, but I never slept there ever again. Here's another story about my mom. This happened in the same place a few months later. One day, we all went to school, and my younger sister stayed home because she was sick. My mom was sleeping in the room, and my mom was talking to one of her friends on the phone, and her friend was telling her about a ghost with an eye or something like that. After their conversation, my mom went to sleep. She said that a few minutes later, she felt somebody climb into the bed and laid where my brother sleeps. My younger brother usually sleeps with my mom at the wall. My mom, for some reason, thought that it was my younger brother. Remember, during this time we were all in school, except for my sister. So my mom just brushed it off. Then, she felt the thing got up and went around and sat on my bed. My bed, which I shared with my two younger sisters, was parallel to my mom's bed, and I sleep across from my mom. Anyways, the thing, or whatever it was, went to sit on my side of the bed and was calling my mom's name. My mom had the blanket over her face and she kind of pushed it down a little bit to see who it was. My mom looked and saw a bonzong with scary looking eyes. She kind of freaked out and pretended to still be asleep. Then she finally went to sleep after a few minutes. When she finally woke up, she called her friend and told her what happened. My sister was out in the living room watching TV, so my mom was getting ready to go somewhere while telling her friend about what she saw. My sister overheard this conversation and totally freaked out. After my mom left, my sister was so scared to stay home alone, but she had to because nobody else was home. She said that she turned up the TV really loud and put on some Korean music really loud on the laptop. She decided to turn up the volume of the K-drama from the computer and all the lights were on. This was during broad daylight. She stayed like that until my little brother and sister came home from school. Later, she told me what happened to my mom and what sat on my part of the bed. But for some odd reason, I wasn't scared. I'm not trying to say anything, but I just didn't feel scared and I brushed it off and slept on my side of the bed and nothing happened to me. My mom never told us anything about it, but she continues to dream about weird things. Sounds like your mom is haunted. Back in the old days, around 1993 or 95, my little brother and my parents got into an argument, so he kind of locked out the whole family outside of the house. Everybody was hanging outside talking to the neighbors. At the time, our block was full of Hmong families. So because of this, my dad decided that we should pay my older brother and his family a visit since we were being locked out by my little brother. My older brother lived about 15 minutes away. After visiting for a few hours, my dad drives us back home. When we turned into the block, I could see from the window there was a figure standing about 7 feet tall with long hair. When we finally reached the house, it was surprisingly unlocked and we walked in to find my little brother sleeping on the couch. I never once told anybody about this incident before, but just a couple of years ago, my family and I were hanging out and talking about the good old days when we started talking about our past encounters. I finally told everybody what I saw that night, and then my two brothers said that they saw the same thing. That freaks me out, knowing that what I saw that night was not an illusion. Here's another story about the same house. Our house has a little basement, kind of like that. It sits about 1 feet off the ground and has an opening on all 4 sides. We have a chicken coop in the backyard, and one night my mom caught a cat that was attacking our chickens. She covered all the outlets from the basement and put the cat inside the base. She told us that night she had a dream that these gods of death came to the cat and told the cat that they were going to leave the cat behind. The cat was sent to take somebody away, but since it failed to do its job, they can no longer wait for the cat. As morning came, my mom went to check on the cat and it was gone. We later moved to a different place, and that is when strange things started to happen. We're here at this new house now, and this house is set up the same way. It sits on top of bricks that leaves a space about 1 feet off the ground. This house has a wood floor. Every night, I never bothered to ask if anyone else hears it, but I would hear the wood creaks from footsteps, and I thought it was just the neighbors because we are in a duplex. Some nights our neighbor's dog would bark like crazy and run all around the backyard. Then, there was this one night when my brother woke up to see a huge dark figure, and he somehow got into a fight with it. Nowadays, I will have dreams like I have never left that house before, and sometimes I even have dreams that I moved back into the same house and everyone and everybody was still the same when we first got there. I mentioned this a couple of times to my mom, but she says that there's nothing to be afraid of. She doesn't know if I have a little ordeal with the house. I remember it was a weekend and my parents were away at my cousin's house helping with some shaman stuff. My baby brother comes up to me and says, "My tummy hurts really bad. Do you know what kind of medicine I should take?" I told him no, but I would try to find something or do something. So stupid me, I turned to the wall of the house and pleaded, "Please, if you can, take the pain from my baby brother and give it to me so he won't have to deal with the pain." A few minutes went by and I suddenly felt this twisted pain in my abdomen. I couldn't take it anymore, so I pleaded again, "Please, if you can hear me, take the pain. You are the wall, therefore you will not feel anything." And bam! Suddenly, the pain was gone. Sometimes when I have dreams about the house, I think it's because of the ordeal that I have. Now, this next story was told to me by my friend. She said that she has this one grandpa which has passed away not too long ago due to a promise that he made with his past girlfriend. The grandpa was very ill, and so the family had to do some jingle bell to look into his soul. The shaman told the family that the reason why he is ill because the girlfriend is trying to take him away. When they were younger, they made a blood promise to be with each other by drinking each other's blood. The girlfriend ended up marrying someone else and living her life. Same thing goes on with my friend's grandpa. After a few days, the grandpa started to talk nonsense and refused to sleep. He said that he can see spirits and that somebody was coming for him. The family decided that they will take turns guarding the grandpa so that he won't be scared. One night, there were about 4 or 5 of the uncles in the bedroom with the grandpa, and all of a sudden, a rock flew from the window and hit the wall. It's impossible for a rock to fly through the window without breaking it. Then, while everybody was looking at the rock that flew next to the window, there was this bloody arm that reached out from under the bed and grabbed their grandpa's arm. They all yelled, "Aren't you embarrassed? There are so many people here, and you're doing that in front of everybody?" The bloody arm then lets go and crawls back under the bed. When the uncle looked under the bed, there was nothing there. A few weeks after that incident, the grandpa passed away, and they say that it was the girlfriend that finally took him because he had something that belonged to her. They say that it was the blood that they drank together when they made that promise. So moral of the story, don't drink people's blood, otherwise you might end up with a bloody arm that will grab you from underneath. I had a sister who passed away since the late 1980s, so I don't really remember her too much. But the story goes like this. She ran away when we were still living in the Bon Vinai refugee camps. She was murdered by some Thai people, and so sometimes she will come to my parents for money and food as a spirit. Before our family were sure about her death, we had yet to set her spirit free so she would come to my parents and bother them. One night, my dad got up to go and use the restroom, and there was a mouse out of nowhere. The mouse was on top of a drawer that was next to the door going to the hallway. My mom saw the mouse first, so she told my dad to hit it on the way out to use the bathroom. But once my dad was out of the room, the mouse transformed itself into a shadow and yelled at my mom. The shadow says, "Oh, so you want him to hit me, huh? Well, let me teach you a lesson." The shadow then grabbed my mom by the foot and dragged her off the bed. She screamed for my dad, and once he got into the room, the shadow was gone. My dad found my mom on the ground and asked her what happened. My mom told my father the whole story, and the next day, they had my grandma look into it. She told us that it was my sister who came to visit us because she was hungry and broke. My parents then burned her some paper joss money and offered her some food. A few weeks later, my parents finally did the ritual to set her soul and spirit free to reincarnate. Here's another story, also about my sister. My mom has been very sick, so she had to do some sort of ritual to see what's the reason behind her sickness. We found out that after the ceremony to set my sister's spirit free, she couldn't reincarnate because she was murdered and her body has no grave. One of my aunties was summoned to do a jingle bell into the other world to build her grave. When my auntie was in her trance, she started to cry and mumbling some words that I couldn't understand. When the ceremony was done, she told us that she saw the whole murder repeat right in front of her. She said that my sister was killed with a bullet to the back of her head. The people that killed her are those that she ran off with, some Thai people. She then dressed up my sister in Hmong traditional clothing and built her a gravesite. After that ceremony, we haven't heard anything from my parents in regards to my sister, so I guess she was finally able to go be reborn. Here's another story. It's a Ouija board story that I have to share. I have a friend who loves to play with the Ouija board. She played it so much that she actually had a spirit of a guy that follows her around. One time, in high school, during lunch, she asked my auntie, who was sitting next to her, "Hey, my guy friend is here with me and he likes you. Can he give you a kiss on the cheek? Oh, you're so weird." My auntie was scared and says no, obviously. Years passed by and I have a homegirl who married my friend's brother, the same friend who played with the Ouija board. One night, my homegirl woke up to get a bottle for her kid and found my friend in front of the TV. The TV was off, but the weird thing was that she was laughing and talking like she was watching something with somebody. This scared the living hell out of my homegirl. A few years passed by and for some reason, my friend seems to be normal now. I guess the spirit got bored and left. Now, this next story that I'm about to tell you is a funeral story. I was at a relative's funeral, a distant uncle from my side, when all of this happened. My uncle has 3 wives. The first wife did not care about my uncle. When he was sick, she didn't cook or clean after him. So he got married to his second wife, to which she passed away. The third wife is my auntie, my mom's sister. During my uncle's funeral, the youngest daughter of the first wife got possessed. She was in another room talking to her sister when she started cussing and throwing chairs around. The sister then came into the main room screaming for help. The guys that were in charge of the funeral went into the room to see what all the commotion was about. They found out that my uncle wanted to come into her body and talk to everybody, but she refuses. So the whole time she was cussing was for him to not get in and to possess her body. When she was finally free of the possession, she told everybody that day that her dad came and tried to attack her. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner when all of a sudden she felt some pain in her leg above her ankle. When she looked at it, she saw that it was a bite mark. Even though it was her father, she was scared that he might attack her again. Now, this is the last story that I have to share with you all. It's a dragon story. During this time, I was in the car with my ex. We were driving from north to east Sacramento. I noticed that something was off and weird about him. I asked him if everything was alright, but he just replied with, "Yeah." When we got to his house and we got upstairs to his room, he finally told me why he was acting weird in the car. He said, "Did you see that by my side of the window?" I told him, "No, why? What did you see?" And he told me that there was this green troll next to him by the passenger window. He said that this whole thing started when he and his friends went out to a lake for a swim. He was getting ready to step out of the water when something pulled him back in. He fell back into the water and he stepped on something that felt like a skull. He got scared and screamed for his friend to pull him out. Since then, he has started to see these green trolls around. He also mentions that every time he eats, he doesn't feel like the food went to his tummy. It feels like something grabbed the food from his throat. Because of this, he stopped eating for a few days or until he is really hungry. That Saturday, when I was with him and noticed him being all weird, I told his mom about it. His mom came into the room and asked him what was going on and what he was seeing. He told his mom the same story he told me and what he saw. His mom then called the church members nearby to come and pray for him, but that didn't help. The whole time they were reading the Bible and praying, he yelled out, "Crap, they're coming closer to me. They're standing next to you guys." A few days later, his mom finally called his uncle, who is a shaman, to come and perform a ceremony. The uncle says that the green trolls are sent from the dragons to take my ex back with them. When he was out swimming, he stepped on the dragon's daughter's head and she fell in love with him. Wow, I guess some people like to be treated like that, that's how they fall in love. The dragon's daughter tried to take him a couple of times, but she couldn't because his heart is no longer with him. It was with somebody else already. Well, I think we know who that person is. Anyways, the uncle had to plead with the dragon that my ex will never interfere with their home ever again and to send the daughter back with the green trolls. They then changed my ex's name and after that nothing else happened. Well, I'm curious now because obviously that's her ex, so that means that his heart isn't with her anymore, but instead it's fair game. So if that daughter, that dragon daughter that he stepped on wants to come back and for them to fall in love, hey, I guess it is what it is. Anyways, thank you for listening to these stories. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you again in the next video.